Prohibition, America, 1920s. A nation that outlawed alcohol, and in doing so, handed an entire industry to the criminal underworld. Out of that chaos rose one man who would become the most infamous gangster in American history. He controlled judges. He controlled police. He controlled an entire city. His name was Alphonse Gabriel Capone. The world knew him as Al Capone, Scarface, the King of Chicago. Brooklyn, New York, January 17, 1899. Al Capone is born to Italian immigrant parents, the fourth of 9 children in a modest, hardworking family. His father is a barber, his mother a seamstress. Nothing about his early life suggests the empire he will one day command. But Brooklyn's streets are rough, and young Al learns quickly that respect is earned through fists, not words. By his teenage years, Capone drops out of school after striking a teacher. The street becomes his classroom. He joins local street gangs, the Brooklyn Rippers, then the notorious 5 Points gang. It's during this period that he earns the scar across his cheek, the one that gives him his famous nickname, a knife fight, a grudge, a mark that will follow him for the rest of his life. In 1919, Prohibition becomes law, banning the production and sale of alcohol across the United States. For ordinary citizens, it's an inconvenience. For criminals, it's the opportunity of a lifetime. Capone moves to Chicago, invited by crime boss Johnny Torrio to help run an already growing bootlegging operation. He arrives quietly. He will not stay that way for long. Capone proves to be a ruthless and brilliant organizer. Speakeasies, breweries, gambling dens, brothels. He builds a sprawling criminal empire that generates an estimated $100 million a year, an almost unimaginable fortune for the era. He bribes police chiefs. He bribes mayors. He bribes anyone standing between him and total control of Chicago's underworld. When Torrio is nearly assassinated by a rival gang in 1925, he retires and hands the entire operation to Capone. At just 26 years old, Al Capone becomes the most powerful crime boss in Chicago. He moves through the city like royalty. Custom suits, diamond rings, a fleet of armored cars. The press calls him a public menace. The public can't stop watching him, but controlling Chicago means war. Rival gangs fight brutally for territory. Bootlegging routes, speakeasies, entire neighborhoods. The violence escalates year after year. Drive-by shootings, ambushes, a city gripped by fear as gangsters battle for supremacy on every street corner. Capone's organization responds to every threat with overwhelming force. February 14, 1929, a garage on Chicago's north side. 7 members of a rival gang are gathered, expecting a routine delivery. What happens instead becomes the most infamous gang killing in American history. Capone is never formally charged, but everyone in Chicago knows exactly who gave the order. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre cements his reputation as the most feared man in America. And yet, like so many crime bosses of his era, Capone cultivates a second image. He opens soup kitchens during the Great Depression, feeding thousands of unemployed Chicagoans every single day. He donates to local charities. He poses for photographs with children. To law enforcement, a criminal mastermind. To struggling families across the city, and strangely, almost a hero. By the early 1930s, the federal government has had enough, but proving murder or bootlegging charges against. Capone proves impossible. Witnesses vanish. Evidence disappears. Juries are intimidated. So, the government tries something different. They build a case, not on violence, but on something far less dramatic. Unpaid taxes, treasury. Agents spend years tracing Capone's lavish spending, the suits, the cars, the properties, against income he never reported to the IR. It is meticulous, unglamorous work, but it is airtight. In 1931, Al Capone is indicted on charges of federal tax evasion. The trial becomes a national sensation. Capone arrives at the courthouse in expensive suits, surrounded by lawyers, smiling for photographers as if he has nothing to fear. But the evidence is overwhelming. The jury returns a guilty verdict. Al Capone, the man no one could touch through murder or bootlegging, is brought down by his own ledger books. He is sentenced to 11 years in federal prison, eventually transferred to the most secure prison in America, Alcatraz Island, San Francisco Bay. The King of Chicago is now just inmate number 85. Behind those walls, his health begins a slow and permanent decline. Years of untreated syphilis take a devastating toll on his mind and body. He is released in 1939, a shadow of the man who once ruled Chicago. He retires, quietly to his Florida estate, increasingly disconnected from the empire he built. On January 25, 1947, Al Capone dies of a stroke. He is 48 years old. Al Capone was not a hero. He was a bootlegger, an extortionist, and very likely a murderer many times over. But he became something larger than the crimes themselves, a symbol of an entire era, of prohibition's failure, of corruption reaching the highest levels of American cities. Nearly a century later, his name remains instantly recognizable around the world. Al Capone, Scarface, gone but never forgotten. If this story kept you watching, subscribe. Every week, the most gripping true crime stories from the darkest corners of history, because the truth is always more terrifying than fiction.